Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, we are going to cover one very important topic, how to upload a picture, document or image to Google Firebase database. We'll use the Angular framework with Angular Fire storage library to upload the document. And as you can see, we are going to implement in such a way that appropriate files are uploaded to their corresponding folders. So as you saw in my past video, we had one implementation of the address book. Now in the address book, you may have a very well need to upload an image of the appropriate context, or you may want to upload some other documentation. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can upload multiple documents for a contact. As you can see in this brief demo, you can see the documents uploaded. Also, you can upload a new document. So if you click on the choose file, if you're on a mobile phone, so it's going to open your camera, or it may ask you the file location from your phone. So in this case, and as you can see, it also shows you the progress, that how much percentage the file has been uploaded. Sorry about the picture I've uploaded. That's the only picture I got on my machine, but you can, you got the idea. You can upload a document, PDF file, image, or JPG, anything you like. And you can have as many files as you want. All right. So this is the implementation we are going to do. So now let's get started. Let's go to Visual Studio Code. Now here, again, I want to call out that if you are watching this video for the first time, please go back and watch the previous video where we implemented the address book. Otherwise, it may not make full sense to you. So here, I want to create a couple of the files here. If you're familiar with Angular CLI, you know how easy it is to create a new component, ngGC, and you give the component name and it creates a new component. But in this case, I'm going to make an exception. I'm manually going to create the components and all the files necessary for the file upload. And you will see the reason why. So first thing I want to do, I want to go to the shared UI, and inside that shared folder, I want to create a new folder called Dropzone. Now here I'm going to store all the files required for the file upload. The first file I want to create here is fileupload.component.html, fileupload.component.ts, and fileupload.component.css file. All right. I will need two more files. So it will be dropzone.directory.ts. There's one more file, filesize.pipe.ts. At this point, don't worry about what these files do. We'll cover those in later part. All right. So we have all those 5 files required to create our file upload component. Now, just to remind you, you can find all of the entire source code what I'm discussing here to my GitHub repository, and I'm going to include the link to this GitHub repository into this video description. Now, let's recap what we are trying to do. So in the first step, we want to create a file size pipe. Now what is pipe is, so sometimes, for example, you have a file size shown in bytes and you want to show it in a like megabyte, kilobyte, those kind of a thing. So that's why the reason we have created a file size pipe. Second thing, I want to create a directive. Now directive helps you support the drag and drop and mousing, mouse over those kind of events. Now, third thing is, instead of just creating a file upload component, we are creating a generic file upload component. And the reason why I'm creating a generic file upload component, so that I can use it anywhere I want. So for example, in this address book, I'm using this for address book. In later part, if I have another component, say campaign or marketing or order, so I can just reuse that component. Now let's get started with the first file, filesize.pipe.ts. Just to remind you, the objective of this file is to convert all the bytes into the appropriate file sizes. So for example, it doesn't make sense to show 1024 bytes. Instead, it makes more sense to show the file size in appropriate quantity. So for example, 1 KB equals to 1024. And it gets more difficult if you have file sizes like MBs or GBs. So the whole objective of this pipe is to create a pipe which will convert the pipes into KBs or MBs or GBs. So first thing you want to do, let's import packages, pipe and pipe transform. Let's define the class, export class file size pipe, and is going to implement pipe transform. All right. Now I want to define 2 constants. So what these constants are, so for example, you want to show the file sizes in abbreviation, for example, KB or MB or GB. Second constant I want to define if you want to use the full expanded form. So for example, kilobytes or megabytes. So let's go define this constant, which are arrays. So I'm just going to say bytes. Same thing for KB is like kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, and so on. All right, now let's go define this pipe decorator. And inside that pipe, I want to create a selector and give it a name, file size. So whenever I'm going to use the file type, all I need to do is just create the pipe and say file size, and it's going to automatically convert the bytes to appropriate KB or MB. Now let's go define this function called transform. And as you can see, transform takes two different parameters, size in bytes, and the second is long form. So for example, you want to use the long form, yes or no. So long form is if you want to use the KB or you want to use the expanded form, say kilobytes. So that's what long form does. Okay. Now inside this transform, let's go to, first thing I want to do is like units. And as you can see, it checks the long form Boolean value. If it is long form equals to Boolean equals to true, then use the long form, otherwise use the short form. Awesome. Okay. Now let's do some maths. So maths is basically the whole idea is I want to convert the byte size into the corresponding size. So for example, 1024 and is equals to 1 KB. So we want to do that math and convert all the bytes into the raw bytes into the kilobytes or MBs and GBs appropriately. Okay. Okay, perfect. So now I think all I need to do, take the size and do this math, and later just return the value which has been converted into the new units. Okay. Formatted size, and that's what we are going to return. All right, so this looks good now. I think this is now good to go. All I need to do, my file size pipe is ready. I need to just add this to my app.module.ts, and anywhere in my implementation, all I need to do where I want to convert the bytes to the KBs, just create this pipe and call this pipe file size pipe. All right, so next file I want to do is dropzone.directory.ts. Now this file is required to support the drag or mouse over events. So let's go import all those directives. All right, next thing I want to do, just define that selector. So I'm going to say app drop zone, and whenever I want to call this app drop zone, is going to support all the mouse over events. Okay. So dropped, Howard. Now let's go define a couple of the host listener. So if the file is dropped, so all it does, like, whenever, if I call this this directory on a div layer, and whenever a movement in your application, if the user is dragging something or like is dropping something into that particular layer, it identifies that and it calls the directory and takes the appropriate action. Okay, let me copy paste this. So again, this whole thing is the pipe we created so that we can convert the bytes to the KBs and MBs. The drop zone directory we are creating just to support the mouse over or drag or drop events, depending on if your user is using the mobile or is using the web application. So all right, I think that's pretty much it. Now let's go start working on the actual files, which is my file component.ts and file component.html file. We'll start with the TS file here. So as you can see, this is because we have created from the scratch. So we need to just define that component here. So import component selector, and I'm going to call it the app file load, app hyphen file upload. Now let's go include those HTML file, CSS file. Let's define that export class file upload component. All right, that looks good. So now let's go define an empty constructor. Okay. Now in the CSS file, so remember, like, we have the drop zone. So it's a good idea to include all the CSS. I'm not going to walk you through what the CSS is. You can always find this implementation code in my GitHub repository. But just to let you know, it's just to give you this whole CSS. The purpose of the CSS is to give a nice look and feel to that div layer where this app file upload will be called. Inside my HTML file, if there is an error, I want to show the error. So don't worry about these two variables here, error or error message. I will cover those later. But the idea is if there is any error, I want that error to show in this HTML page. Okay. Now, second thing is I want to display the progress. So for example, if user is uploading a big file, suppose in gigabytes, so I want to show the actual progress, the percentage of the files has been already been uploaded. So if if the percentage is already there, and again, I'm going to capture this percentage on the TypeScript file, and I'm going to show that in a minute, and that is going to be an asynchronous operation. So here, if the percentage is already there, I want to show that percentage into my HTML file. Okay, so here just say progress class and then show the percentage value. All right, there's one more thing I want to include. So once the file has been uploaded, then you want to show that a message said data is saved. So first let's just finish up the percentage. Now let's go include the div for the saved layer. So if the data is saved, you need to show that message. So how do you know the data will be saved? When the file transferred is equal to the file size, I mean the size of the file transfer is equal to the files of the size of the file, then you know the data is saved. Again, so we'll come back to this later. Now let's go create the div layer, which is actually responsible for uploading the file. So it could be very simple. All in HTML, all you need to do input type equals to file, and it's going to create a nice form element here. But I just want to call that inside the div so that I can call all my, remember the directory we have created, the file upload, so that we can call this out. All right, so inside this div layer, input type equals to file, change, and see the method I have defined the start upload, and I'm going to cover that method in 1 minute. But here let's go first call that directory here, Dropzone directory. So remember, that's the whole purpose we created a directory. Okay, let's head out to our TypeScript file now. So remember, like, how do we want to use this component and make it more generic? So the way to do that is like have app file upload. But how do I know? So I have to create an input parameter here, say file URL, and then I, whatever component I'm on. So for example, I'm an address book, so I'll just say pass it as an input parameter here. So that's the reason in my TypeScript file, I have included the input. See, file URL, and this will be my input. So that's how I know which folder it should be uploaded to. So input, and I'm going to say file URL, which is my folder name actually, and then let it have another decorator. Input is called document ID. And now let's go include all of those Angular file storage module here. Okay. So now it becomes very, very simple implementation, just like what we have the standards implementation from the Angular file storage library. Let's define two observables. Download URL in the percentage, and one Boolean value is hovering. Okay. So in the CSS file, actually I have commented that out. I'll fix that later. But let's go. Now let's start defining a couple of the methods here, which will be called when the user picks up the file or goes and clicks on the choose file button or input value. Okay. So let's go. First, let's go to the HTML file. So in this div layer, so I want to create the Howard, and then so if you're on the in the div layer, okay, you want to call that function called toggle, and the second is if something has been dropped in that particular layer, you want to call another method called start upload process. Okay, so now let's go define the first function called toggle. Okay, and it takes the input as a parameter here. When the input is a Boolean value, if it starts, that means user has already started the uploading process here. Okay. Whatever, it takes an event. Okay, now the second method is the important one. That's where I'm going to start my uploading process here. Start upload. Again, it takes an event as a parameter here. So whatever the file has been dropped to my start upload. When the file has been dropped, so it calls the method called start upload. Now here, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to define a path. So and then I want to define, so the file path could be a file URL. So remember, that's how I know which folder to upload. So remember, the file URL is my input parameter here. So it knows that I need to upload this file into the address book folder here. All right. So address book folder. So that's the whole reason I'm creating a new path here. So that's how we know address book folder and slash file name. And so this is the way you can use this component over and over here, anywhere in any other pages here. So here you just say file path and you append that address book folder, and then you followed by a forward slash, and then you give the actual file name. You can, again, depending on your requirement, you can add a new date to the file name so that you know when the file was actually uploaded. The next thing is call that file reference. So file reference is called the storage, it's called on the storage, the storage.ref, and storage comes from the Angular file storage module. All right. Next, then it becomes very simple. All you need to do, file ref, and then you call it a put method. There are a couple of different methods Angular file storage gives you. So for example, put method, upload method. So I'm just going to call the put method here. And then on this task, I can call a percentage changes. So remember I was showing you that the actual progress. So you can, percentage is an observable here, which will continuously monitor how much file has been already uploaded. Okay. Again, this part is optional, but I think it's a very good idea to show the actual percentage of the upload process here. All right. Next thing is finalize. And when this is finalized, all you need to do, just get the download URL. Remember to get the download URL captured in a variable here. And I'm going to show this in later part of the video because uploading is easy, but how do we call that file? How do we know that what file has been uploaded? So that's why we always capture the this.download URL, that download URL into a variable here. All right. So I'm going to call it a backend service here. So remember the document ID is another input parameter we have created. So once the file has been uploaded, I know the downloaded URL. So once I know the downloaded URL, now go back and update that particular address book entry. So again, just to recap. So remember for one address, so for example, address ID 123, I have uploaded a file into my storage. So you uploaded the file, but go back to that address book document and append and you change something to that address book document, and you have that file download URL here. So take that file download URL and update the address book document. So again, once you see that in action, it will make more sense to you. So after the file has been uploaded, take that file uploaded URL and also update the address book entry. So that's what we are trying to achieve. So now once this so the whole idea is now this file upload component is ready, and anywhere. So for example, you have another application, say order fulfillment. All you need to do, app file upload, and your folder name becomes orders, and your document is ID order number. So that's how you reuse that component over and over again. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you, because I know it's what is kind of a little bit difficult implementation. It could be very simply achieved in 1 or 2 minutes. Like if you just go to the Angular file storage and use their default module, you can simply achieve that. But the whole idea, I'm doing it like this so that I can take this component and use it over and over again. Now I never need to come back and recreate this. I just one implementation and I can use it over and over again. Hopefully you like this session. If you have any question, please feel free to raise a new issue log to my GitHub repository, and I'll be happy to help you out. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.